Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Why don't you want flying if we do get TBC after Classic? I know this is quite far ahead, but as of making this I'm working my way through my series of what each expansion brought to the game, and flying is one of those subjects that's really taken a downwards turn in what people think of it the longer it has existed. As you may know, I'm in favour of us going to TBC one day following Classic's timeline, and without a doubt at this point in time, one of the most controversial features added in the expansion was flying. And you may think the title of this video is a bit presumptuous. Maybe you are eager for flying to be a thing. It is for sure a huge convenience. I have no doubt that some of you are waiting for it eagerly. The reason I'm presenting it like this is because, well, you hear flying bad so much more than flying is good. There's definitely going to be me playing some devil's advocate in this video as well, by the way, so let's get into it. I decided for once, why not run a poll to go alongside the video. Let's see whether people saying that flying bad end up being the vocal minority, as is usually the case. Now, note on these polls I couldn't do more than 5 options unfortunately, so I had to pinpoint what I thought may have been the key concerns. And after a good amount of time, the votes started to even out quite a bit for the different options. I was surprised at what came in, to be honest. And by the way, many votes in this much time is a massive amount, so thanks a lot to everyone who took their time to help me out with this. I really appreciate it. Also, consider dropping a sub, it helps me out a lot, and my average viewership compared to subs is definitely on the low end. Anyways, as you can see, those wanting to take to the skies are the big majority of players, making up over 50% of the votes, with the next 2 main issues being it led to the downfall of world PvP, shortly followed by the diminishing of the world we have to play with. That's some good information to go off. First, we should outline the main criticisms of flying, then we will delve into each one in some more detail, okay? And of course, we'll do some positives afterwards. So 1, it made the world seem smaller. 2, you no longer needed to interact with the world around you. 3, it made the game easier. 4, it killed world PvP. 5, Blizzard had to accommodate flying in every expansion since. 6, certain zones were designed with flying in mind, workarounds would be needed. It made the game seem smaller. Well, funnily enough, Outland is already smaller, way smaller in fact. It's tiny compared to the Eastern Kingdoms or Kalimdor. In my TBC content review recently, I had a look, there's about 40 zones in the mainland and 7 in Outland. You know what else flying did? Solve an issue that didn't really exist anymore. Flight paths by and large actually made sense in TBC, rather than some in Classic which are highly questionable. Even going from one end of the continent to the other, it's not going to be that long. In Classic though, you take a flight from Darkshore to Gadgets and, well, you better have something to do for about 15 minutes because that's how long you're going to be stuck on that griffin. Flying seemed like a natural progression for us as players going forwards. If you think flying added a level of convenience in TBC, you're likely thinking of zones where it's required or the zone is made for it, like Blade Edge Mountains. Imagine in vanilla the trip from Feralus to Ongoro Crater by land compared to flight. Even the flight path just doesn't make any sense when you're going there. All the same, I don't think you can argue that it did make an already smaller world feel more compact, but by the same token, Blizzard built in content that made flying useful, so even when crossing from one border to the next zone, there was still spaces for content. What it did impact more, however, was number 2, you no longer needed to interact with the world around you. This is undoubtedly true. Profession gathering, pathing around zones, encountering other players, taking out that one mob that was in the way of you mining and it dropping an epic, it just didn't really happen anymore, and that is a shame. It really is. It's an MMORPG, and it seems to have been built from the ground up. After all, most classes cannot fly until max level, druids being the exception. The age-old tale of developers wanting the players to experience the world they have created, whilst the players more and more wanting speed and efficiency. On the other hand, are you really missing out doing your 20th lap of Nagrand in search of mining nodes? Running around a whole mountain because that's the only way to get to your objective? Maybe not. Number 3, it made the game easier. This is something I have heard. It wasn't really popular in the votes though comparatively. This is kind of vague in what was easier, getting gold, finding world PvP, things taking less time. Something taking longer has always been the worst level of increasing difficulty for me. Have you ever played Elder Scrolls Oblivion? They literally have a slider for difficulty that makes you weaker and enemies stronger. It's terrible. Nothing changes in the game, no new enemies or abilities, it just takes longer. Taking longer doesn't equal difficulty. Taking longer is lazy game design. Running from A to B in 30 seconds rather than 2 or 3 minutes is a bit of a non-argument for me, so let's move on. Number 4, it killed world PvP. This is the big one. Okay, I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here, but I want to get this off my chest. I don't know about you guys, but I think world PvP has been so incredibly oversold as a good thing after having experienced Phase 2 and playing on a PvP server. In vanilla, I played PvE, so I wanted to relive the epic tales you heard from the PvP servers, and I can count the number of good interactions I've had with world PvP on one hand. 90% of world PvP is just ganking, even after Phase 2, I think it's ruined the concept for many people who have now shied away from those servers, and it doesn't really matter what organic world PvP or how it was back then, because we aren't back then, we're now. When you look back at the PvP videos of old of people smashing 1v3s easily, the sick outplays, the big crits, how easily they crushed people, it looks insane, but nowadays I watch them and I see a mage in PvP epic still eating people in quest screens who are backpedaling. It's aged like milk, and even when I'm solo 9 out of 10 times everyone will just pass by each other, because let's be real, if you're out in the open world, the only people that are actively trying to PvP most of the time are horde ranking players, because they're incentivized to do so by gear. But just like the Paramites in Abe's Oddworld, you're an absolute legend if you get that reference by the way, so there's more than two, they go from peaceful to aggressive. The world PvP I like is when I'm with my guild and we're gonna raid. That bit is actually fun, and not because we suddenly outnumber people, but because of the guild versus guild potential, it being large scale. Think to TBC, would every primal farming spot be camped on release for a very long time? Yes. Would certain meeting stones be off limits for certain servers? Yes. It's not just the case of make your own group when you're outnumbered 3 to 1. You might think this is some alliance bias coming in, and you're wrong. I've leveled a shaman to 60 on Golemag EU, that's a PvP server, and I came across more alliance players ganking for the sake of it than I ever have horde players. Some people are absolutely seething from phase 2 still. Let me give you a moral dilemma. You see a person in front of you on the opposite faction, you're on a PvP server, they're being chased by a mob, it's catching up to them fast. It's gonna take them out with its next hit. Do you CC the mob and save that person, or hit them and finish them off? In reality, it's a split-second decision. In the time you're thinking about it now, you've already taken an action. What's better, landing a cheap shot, or having somebody you may see 3 months down the line give you a slash wave and you remember this moment? I don't get anything out of taking someone out with lower health than me, or outnumbering people, or killing lower levels. I like PvP when both parties are ready to PvP, and the open world just doesn't fit that for me. The majority of the time you could say, well, you're on a PvP server, of course you have to be ready for PvP. It doesn't matter how ready you are if someone decides to attack you while being 8 levels higher, or in a group though, does it? And let's not even get into the closet role players who would laugh at people / remote role-playing in capital cities, but the second you put them in a battleground or a PvP scenario, they're running about yelling blood and glory and calling people cowards. It's ridiculous. The aspect of world PvP that Flying killed is guild versus guild for sure for me, and that's the worst part to have lost. Everyone can just fly into instances or raid, whilst only granting access to more frequent world PvP for everybody else. If everyone can fly, the chance someone pops out the sky to engage you becomes so much higher. The scope for camping is vastly easier. Just as you can CC someone and run away now, you can CC someone and fly away then. It changed world PvP, I wouldn't say it ruined it. Number 5, Blizzard had to accommodate to flying in every expansion moving forwards. I actually think Blizzard regret ever putting flying in the game. They tried to take it away in Warlords of Draenor only for players to rage, and these days you have to regrind a lot of content before you can unlock it again, which seems to be the go-to going forwards. Of course people still rage, but that's people, isn't it? Remember Storm Peaks and Wrath of the Lich King? A zone that required flying. It was amazing. The huge majestic towers, the panning views, the awe-inspiring music score, the elusive time-lost proto-drake. And you may forget, but even in Cataclysm certain content needed flying. Entrances to early raid tiers like the Bastion of Twilight or Blackwing Descent. I can't imagine doing Deepholm without flying. It's too much fun either. Then after that they just kind of stopped doing it, and each expansion tried to take it away a bit more and more. I can only imagine creating a world is so much more difficult when you have to take flying into account. And finally, number 6, the Burning Crusade requires flying in certain zones. Yes, it does, but it's kind of a non-argument to be honest. Watch this. Boom. Fixed. Don't need flying anymore. It's as simple as that. A lock summoning is always a workaround too, but it does limit content a bit more, which creates exclusivity for some players, which I like. Obviously, this starts going into the realm of the scary C word, which people don't like, unless it suits them, of course. Anyways, enough of with the bad, let's talk about the good. First of all, it was Outland only. Vanilla was not made with flying in mind. The amount of weird texture glitches and zones of just absolutely nothing made it kind of impossible just to activate it on the mainland, hence the whole world rework in Cataclysm and flying becoming available to players on Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor then. Who knows what the future holds for Blizzard's legacy servers. Going to Cataclysm? Not too sure on that one. Number 2, convenience, the pure convenience factor. I'm not even talking about zones designed for flying like the Netherwing Daily Area or Sketis or whatever you want. Alkindune is a pain without flying. Blade's Edge Mountain is a pain without flying. Going from A to B in 30 seconds instead of 2 minutes is what most people would choose. If I were doing the run from Zangarmarsh to Shattrath on my 4th alt, I'm not exactly thinking, gee, I sure am enjoying this ride, immersing myself in this world, rather than I just want to get there and get my next quest. Sure, you get that the first time around, but it has diminishing returns, doesn't it? The mounts themselves, just look at what we got. Flying was a big new feature. Did Blizzard deliver in making it look awesome? Yes, just yes. The Netherwing and PvP mounts, Ashes of Allah, the Nether Rays, Cenarian Griffins, flying carpets for tailoring, flying machines for engineering. These were all really, really cool additions. Even more so than many of the new awesome ground mounts like the Raven Lord or the White Hawk Strider. They look great. Whatever you think about flying as an addition to the game, oh man, do you look good flying about on some of these mounts. And even the first flying mounts you get are quite purposely standard in their looks, those being the Wind Rider and the Griffins, the typical mounts we're so used to from vanilla. So you really have something to push for to get those big rewards. So well played on this one, Blizzard. Well played. And finally, the Burning Crusade without flying just isn't the Burning Crusade. It would be like TBC without Karazhan or without arenas. Flying is inextricably associated with the expansion, and despite issues, it did much to shape the game going forwards as a core feature. So there we have it, my little, not so little talk on flying. I don't really mind it personally. Imagine if it were removed and you just had a bunch of portals taking you places. It would be really strange. Oh, and just to touch on it so we aren't leaving it out, regular flying is 900 gold, including the mount, for 60% ground and airspeed. Epic is 5.2 thousand, including the mount, for 100% ground and 280% airspeed. Not everybody is going to be zooming about, well, at least not on their alts anyway. This is a massive gold sink, which will be very welcome by the end of Classic. People are already so good at making gold, we do need a way to flush some of that currency out of the economy to better the long-term prices of items on the auction house. Anyways, what do you think? Fan of flying, or do you want to see those wings clipped? Let me know. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. If you like what you see, give the video a like and subscribe, as there's plenty more to come. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Take care. Bye.